Every time before it gets dark, this man sprays alcohol on the door of his house. As soon as he returns home, the first thing he does is clean his dog. The moment he sees that the sun is about to set, he immediately shuts the doors and windows by putting on special steel plates. But even with no lights on in the house, he still doesn't feel safe. He clutches his rifle to his chest and curls up in the bathtub with his dog. Only then does he feel some relief. In fact, the man has taken such strict precautions because as soon as night falls, the outside world no longer belongs to humans. Terrifying hordes of zombies roam the streets, spreading chaos. Around 5 years ago, in 2012, a virus caused massive destruction. This virus killed 90% of humans, while 9% turned into zombies. These zombies are afraid of sunlight. They only come out at night, and their sense of smell is extremely sharp. The main character of our story, Will, is one of the survivors of this virus. He belongs to less than 1% of people in the world who have strong antibodies. Will is speeding through the deserted streets of New York in his Ford Mustang. He is chasing a deer in the middle of the city. In a world where he is now almost completely alone, food has become the most basic and essential need. But just as he is about to hunt, suddenly a lioness leaps in and surrounds the deer before him. Seeing his prey taken away, Will thinks about killing the lioness. At that moment, a lion and a cub also come out. Seeing the three of them reminds Will of his dead family. He does not fire because he knows that lions maintain the balance of nature. Before heading out to search for other survivors and zombie hideouts, Will leaves his house every day at exactly 8 a.m. Every day he drives to a video store. There he changes the staircase and talks to the mannequins he has already placed. Seeing this, no one could imagine how lonely a person can become that he has to make mannequins his friends. He marks every place he visits on a map and collects food and essential supplies from those locations. In search of other survivors, he calls out on the radio every day at exactly 12 noon and then drives to the pier hoping for a miracle. But 3 whole years have passed and he has never received a reply. To ease his loneliness, Will goes in the afternoon to the Enterprise aircraft carrier and plays golf while standing on an aircraft. But during this, his dog notices something strange. There was movement somewhere in the distance. Will immediately picks up his rifle, looks through the scope, and finds that it is a deer. Without wasting time, he sets out for the hunt with his dog. But then a bad incident happens. While running around, the deer accidentally gets trapped in a closed area and in panic runs inside a building. Perhaps the dog had not had meat for a long time, so it also runs fearlessly into the building after it. Will tries to stop him. Will panics, but for his dog, he has no choice but to go inside. Inside, it was completely dark. Nothing was visible. Even though I have increased the brightness of the video, the atmosphere still feels even more frightening and terrifying. At this moment, Will's heart is racing badly. Even a mirror could scare him. As he goes upstairs searching for his dog, suddenly he hears a painful scream. Afraid that something bad might have happened to his dog, he moves forward, trying to reassure himself. Following the bloodstains on the stairs, when he reached the turn, he sees the severed head of an animal. The relief was that as he moved forward, he realized it was a moose that had just been killed, but the fear on the moose's face before death was clearly visible. Seeing this, Will raised his gun and started looking around. Then he saw another terrifying sight. Within moments, a group of zombies was less than 5 meters away from him. Gathering courage for his dog, Will had to go inside. Finally, he found his German Shepherd under a table, looking extremely scared. Just as he was about to step forward and call the dog's eyes fixed directly behind Will. He sensed something was wrong. The moment he turned around, a horrifying scene appeared before him. Will ran out like a madman with his dog, but eventually they were caught by the zombies. Fortunately, Will managed to jump out through a dark window just in time, and as soon as sunlight fell on the zombie, it collapsed to the ground, injured. Although the experience had terrified Will, it also gave him a lead. To experiment on zombies, he set a trap outside. He took out a vial of his own blood and placed it at the building's entrance, while he himself hid outside. Within just 2 minutes and 30 seconds, a zombie got caught in the trap. As soon as it activated, a live zombie was dragged out forcefully. But at that very moment, with an angry angry roar, a terrifying-looking zombie suddenly appeared, as if it wanted to devour Will alive. He couldn't understand why this zombie was so furious. After returning home, Will remained busy experimenting on the zombie. He had no idea that the female zombie he had captured was actually the wife of that roaring zombie king. Because of this, a full-blown conflict between zombies and humans had begun. He was the only living human left in the city, but he was shocked when he saw that the head of a mannequin suddenly moved. Even more disturbing was the fact that this mannequin, which should have been at the entrance of the video store, had somehow appeared several kilometers away. No one could understand how. Just then, Will pulled out his gun and aimed it at the mannequin, thinking that maybe some human had placed it there to communicate with him, but he saw no one around. In reality, it was a trap set by the zombie king for revenge because Will had captured his wife. When Will approached the mannequin and bent down to look at the water beneath it, suddenly the trap was activated and Will was lifted into the air. Due to the injury to his head, Will lost consciousness. As the sun was about to set, Will woke up to the sound of his alarm clock. As soon as the sunlight disappeared, terrifying zombies came out. In panic, Will pulled a knife from his waist and cut the rope tied to his legs. But as soon as he fell to the ground, the knife pierced into his side, making the situation even worse as the last rays of the setting sun were fading. In the next moment, Will sensed something was wrong. From the dark building ahead, terrifying sounds began to emerge. Then the zombie king appeared and released 3 ferocious hunting dogs. Because of the remaining sunlight, they couldn't reach him, but as soon as the sun fully set a few minutes later, the zombie dogs attacked wildly. At this moment, the main character was badly injured. Between life and death, his only ray of hope was his German shepherd, who had stayed with him through this apocalypse. That dog was his only companion, his reason to live. He feared that his dog might die. He remembered there was a pistol in the car. Will began crawling toward it, but as the last rays of sunlight faded, the dog's attack intensified. He had very little time left. Enduring the pain, he stood up and tried to move forward on his toes, but after a few steps, he collapsed again. At that very moment, the ferocious zombie dogs lunged at him. Will managed to stop their attack with gunfire, but then another zombie dog leaped at him. Within seconds, its sharp teeth were about to tear into his face when the German shepherd arrived just in time and saved him. But the worst was yet to happen. The German shepherd had been bitten during the fight by another dog. This made Will's heart sink because only he had the antibody, not the dog. After returning home, Will immediately injected an antiviral medicine. He held the dog in his arms and hoped that it would recover. Smiling faintly, he tried to comfort himself that his beloved companion would be fine. But then the dog's fur started falling out. When Will lifted its eyelid, he saw signs of the infection in the corners of its eyes and deadly symptoms beginning to show in its mouth as well. Will was shattered, but reality forced him to make a painful decision. Against his will, he used his own hands to strangle the life out of the one he loved, the one who had stayed with him through countless lonely, dark nights. He was completely broken. At the same time, Will realized something strange. Humans infected by the virus lose their intelligence when they turn into zombies. So how were they able to set traps just like humans? When he looked at the seat beside him and saw no sign of Sam, he couldn't take it anymore. That very night, he drove straight toward the harbor and without thinking began attacking the zombies. Because he was inside the car, the zombies couldn't harm him at first, but they kept coming endlessly. Soon they completely surrounded the car and began smashing the window. Some zombies climbed onto a lamp and knocked it down onto the car. Will got trapped inside. As he saw the crowd closing in, he tried desperately to escape, but more zombies kept arriving. Then the zombie leader gave the order to attack him. Before Will could react, the impact caused the car to flip over near the edge, and the creature stood right in front of him. Now Will was like a trapped deer in a snare. Death was closing in with every passing second. At that moment, a bright light appeared, as if someone was approaching him. Finally, unable to endure any more, Will lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself lying in his house with his injured leg bandaged. He saw a woman nearby, along with a child. It had been 3 years since Will had seen another human being. He didn't even know how to talk to them. The woman introduced herself as Anna. She told Will that she had heard his broadcast on the radio. She had come to New York with her child and waited all day, but Will never showed up. She was planning to go to Vermont, which she believed was a safe place for humans. Hearing this made Will angry. He told Anna that there was no safe place anywhere. All of America had been destroyed. Anna tried to argue, but Will suddenly shouted at her. He had always believed that he was the last human alive on Earth, which had put him under mental pressure. In his despair, Will
had become completely dependent on science and logic, focusing all his efforts on finding a cure for the virus. His entire life and hope were tied to that single goal, but Anna's presence suddenly changed everything. She told Will that there were other survivors somewhere. This meant that Will's long years of loneliness and hard work might not have been in vain, because now there was a living human standing right in front of him. Will spent a long time in his room, struggling with his thoughts and emotion. Eventually, he accepted the reality and came out. Anna tried to convince Will to go with her to the quarantine zone, but he clearly refused. He said he would not leave this place under any circumstances. After that, Anna went into Will's lab. When she saw the female zombie lying frozen, she couldn't believe her eyes. She asked Will if he could really cure her. Then Anna saw hundreds of pictures of zombies on the wall. To develop the vaccine, he had used them like lab rats. As the sunlight began to fade, Will quickly shut all the doors and windows. Anna once again tried to persuade Will to go to the quarantine zone, but before Will could respond, he heard loud movement coming from outside. When he opened the small window and looked outside, he saw a huge crowd of zombies moving toward his house. Seeing this, Will couldn't believe his eyes. He had always tried his best to hide his scent, yet somehow a large group of zombies had discovered his location. Like monsters, they began rushing toward him madly. When he questioned the woman, he realized that when she had rescued him the previous day, she brought him home safely, but later didn't take any precautions. But now was not the time to blame anyone. Will immediately turned on all the bright lights around him. Surprisingly, the zombies, who were usually afraid of light, had now become smarter. After destroying all the street lights, they started advancing rapidly toward him. Frightened, Will quickly activated his second line of defense and triggered all the bombs at once. When he looked again, he saw that many zombies had been blown apart, but as soon as he called out to Anna, there was no response. He rushed upstairs to find her. At that very moment, a zombie attacked him. It grabbed him tightly, lifted him off the ground, and slammed him onto a table. Helpless, Will was brutally overpowered. When the zombie thought Will was dead, it didn't realize he was pretending. Seizing the moment, Will grabbed a screwdriver and stabbed the zombie, but it didn't do much damage. The zombie threw him down again. As the zombie king growled at him in anger, Will quickly picked up a nearby rifle, but the zombie suddenly ran away, as if it knew how dangerous human weapons were. He tried to aim, but the zombie hid behind a wall, so he shot at a gas cylinder instead. The explosion threw the zombie out, but it wasn't badly injured. It climbed the stairs and disappeared. When Will chased it, he found it had jumped out of a window and escaped.
Will hurried back inside to find the woman, but he saw another zombie in the room, while the woman and child were hiding in fear under a cupboard. Will signaled them to stay silent. He prepared to shoot the zombie with his pistol, but the zombie spotted them. To protect them, Will had no choice but to rush in and fire at it. Just then, a loud noise came from outside. When Will opened the door, the zombie king was roaring at him. In fact, it had gone to bring more of its kind. Even more terrifying was that now their attack was no longer random destruction, but fully planned. When Will saw the leader outside the window, he felt uneasy. These zombies didn't seem like mindless creatures anymore. They had intelligence. All three quickly ran to the basement. Will locked the main door tightly, and Anna hid with the child inside a compartment. Then she witnessed something unbelievable and immediately called Will. The vaccine Will had created was working. The zombie king's wife was slowly turning back into a human, but at that very moment, the zombies broke in. Will quickly shut the glass door. He wanted to show them that he could turn them back into humans, but in the zombies' eyes, Will himself was like a monster. He had captured their kind and experimented on them, and now he had even kidnapped their leader's wife. This filled the entire horde with rage. As the zombie king kept slamming into the glass door, it slowly began to crack. At that moment, Will realized something. While looking around in panic, his eyes fell on the butterfly tattoo on the woman's neck. Seeing the butterfly, it was as if everything suddenly made sense to him. He immediately picked up a container and extracted serum from the zombie king's wife's body. Her blood had become like a vaccine. It could create antibodies, so he took the serum and sent the woman and child through a safe underground passage. After handing over the serum, he sealed the gate. At that very moment, the zombie king broke through the glass. Instantly, Will pulled the pin of a grenade and charged straight toward the group of zombies. And that's where this incredible movie ends.